Hello and welcome back. As you can see, this episode is going to be a little different as we're playing around with some basic lighting effects. And if I dim the lights, you can really see the kind of effect I'm going for with this one. So, something like that. But, obviously, we're going to need a few extra bits and pieces for this project. The first of which is a cheap set of lights, and you can usually pick this kind of thing up from those bargain type stores. For example, these cost £1 and were from Poundland here in the UK. And as well as those, we'll also need a sheet of tracing paper, and if you want to go the extra mile, you'll need a glass marble as well. Oh, and of course, you'll also need the PDF file, which can be found down in the description. So, let's get started. Okay then, the first thing we'll need to do is take the floor texture and glue that to a piece of thin cardboard. Then, once it's had plenty of time to dry, we'll cut that to size with a sharp knife. And after that, we'll start the tedious process of cutting out each of the white spaces. And I'm not gonna lie, this does take a while. But as you can see, I'm not using a ruler or anything like that, I'm just cutting them out freehand. But yeah, do be careful when using a sharp knife. Anyway, if we assume that I've cut all of those out, we'll then need to take a sheet of tracing paper and cut that into a 5.5-inch square. And then it's just a simple matter of gluing that onto the back. And that should diffuse the light nicely. So to speed things up, here's one that I made earlier. Though try not to use too much glue, as the tracing paper, it does have a habit of wrinkling as it dries. Anyway, for this particular piece, I'll be using the taller of the two wall textures, and I'll stick 2 of those to some thin cardboard and cut them to size. And I'll glue the other 2 to some corrugated cardboard, but for these, I'll trim around 1mm off each end to allow for the thickness of the other 2 pieces. It'll make more sense later, trust me. Then it's just a simple matter of gluing these into place. So, I like to begin with the 2 corrugated pieces, and here I am sticking those down first. Then I'll start attaching the thinner cardboard sides, and it's the same kind of thing that we did with the multi-level dungeons back in episode 30. Anyway, if I just pause here for a second, you can see how trimming that extra bit off each side of the corrugated cardboard has left this little lip here, which is enough space to fit the thinner wall, if that makes sense. But yeah, I'll get back to sticking this all together now, and when we're done, we should end up with something that looks like this. So if I take the lights and the battery pack and scrunch them all together, when we place this little box on top, we should end up with a raised section of the dungeon, complete with this strange, glowing, arcane circle thing. And once again, if I dim the lights, this is how it looks. However, if you're not all that interested in having gimmicky light-up tiles, then I've also included a regular version of the floor tile as well, like you can see here. And in this example, I've used the shorter walls. So, that's the main part of the video done, but there are a few other things that we can make as well. Okay, for the first of these, we'll take this texture here, wrap that around a large drinking straw, and then cut it to size. Next, we'll glue both of the octagonal pieces to a piece of thin cardboard, and trim those to size as well. And finally, we'll need to make one of these pieces from the Green Flames quick craft video. Then it's just a simple matter of hot gluing these one on top of the other, which should result in something that looks like this. And if I take the regular tile that I showed a moment ago, we can place this at the centre of that tile for a bit of extra detail. Right then, in a similar vein, we'll do the same thing with the octagonal piece that has a dot marked in the middle, but this time we'll use that dot to help us locate the centre of the piece, as we're going to punch that out with a hole punch, like so, and we'll then go ahead and glue the large straw piece on top, so that we end up with something like that. However, when doing this, we don't want to use too much glue, as the idea is to have enough space to be able to push one of the LEDs inside. Next, we'll take a regular glass marble, and I'll be using this one here, as it has a slight greenish tint to match the lights. And then we'll simply hot glue that to the top. And there you go. This is what we're aiming for. So if we take one of the LEDs and push that inside, you can see that it goes from being a simple marble to a strange magical artifact perhaps, or maybe some kind of scrying device. And to fix it to the tile, we'll first need to cut out a small hole in the tile itself, like you can see here, and then simply glue it on top. It's all fairly straightforward stuff. And yeah, this is the same piece that you saw back in the intro. Okay then, the last thing we're going to have a go at making is a set of stone steps. So, the first thing we'll do is glue the side textures to some thick corrugated cardboard. Then we'll glue the steps themselves to some thin corrugated cardboard. And finally, we'll glue the decorative strip to some regular cardboard. And once they've had plenty of time to dry, we'll cut all of those to size. There you go. However, it is worth noting that the top step is slightly longer than the other two, so you'll want to keep that one separate. And I also like to trim the decorative strips so that they are a bit shorter than the width of the steps themselves. So, since these steps are 2 inches wide, I've made these 1 7/8. Okay then, for the assembly, I like to add some hot glue to the front of one of the steps, and then glue on the decorative piece so that it's flush with the side. Then, once the glue is set, I'll do the same thing with the opposite side. And that should result in this kind of thing. Then I'll do the same thing for the other 2 steps, making sure that the decorative pattern is the same way up as the corresponding pattern on the side panels. And with any luck, this is how it should end up. Okay, next we'll glue on the 2 lower steps, and the reason for these being a little bit smaller than the top step is because now that we have the thickness of the decorative strip behind them, that brings them forward around 1 millimeter or so, if that makes sense. Anyway, to finish things off, we'll just need to add the top step, making sure that it's flush with the back of the 2 side pieces. And that's pretty much all there is to it. As you can see, these look a lot more solid than the wooden steps that we made in a previous episode, and we can use these to gain access to the magic circle that we made earlier. And, of course, there's nothing stopping you from making smaller 1-inch versions as well. So I'll just throw the lights underneath to finish it off, and yeah, I think that's it for this episode. But before I head off, I do just want to say that some of the inspiration for this one came from one of Blandco's videos, so check that out if you haven't already. Anyway, as always, I'd love to know what you think of this piece, and if you'd like to see more of this kind of thing, but for now, all that's left to say is thank you very much for watching. Like, share, subscribe, and all that other nonsense if you feel so inclined, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.